Welcome to Lincoln Projects, where I was born and raised. We all united and stick together like as one, but that's pretty much Lincoln for you. It's about 14 buildings, right next to the highway, and right next to the 138 bridge, the Willis Bridge. But this is my community. We got everything here. Some that struggle with addiction. We all go through our pitfalls and downfalls, but it's that unification that makes us strong. I grew up in 1980, where things were extremely rough and hard. Father was addicted to heroin and addicted to crack, and often beat up on my mother and myself. That trajectory of my life ended up leading me to join a gang at the age of 16. I joined the Bloods of a set called Original Blood Brothers. It didn't take long before I rose up the chapters and became a leader of my particular chapter and set. And at one time, I had about 450 people up under my leadership. And sad to say, a lot of heinous and heartbreaking things happened. I was addicted to like the street life. And I realized that I was a risk taker, you know? So how do I test my bravery? How do I test my courage? And slowly but surely, I stopped carrying weapons and started to use my mouth, my tongue, as my weapon. See, when I was going through what I was going through, I never recognized it as a problem at first. So it was easy to keep on doing what I'm doing. When I recognized it was an issue and a problem, it was the very first time that I realized that whatever you put out into the universe, it will be a direct response to it. I remember one time I was teased in elementary school. So I was maybe 6 or 7 years old, maybe eight. And I'm coming home from school, right? Now, 8 years old, I probably should have had an adult with me, but I'm walking home, but I'm so distraught and upset and mad, I'm dragging my book bag. And one of the, I would consider him one of the OGs from my building saw me, and he was asking me what's wrong with you? Why you so down and out? And I was complaining about my sneakers was they was clowning on my sneakers and I was embarrassed. He told me put my head up, you know what I'm saying? He said, don't ever be ashamed from where the fuck you from. You know what I'm saying? You from Lincoln, you know what I'm saying? They want to be from here. And it instilled that kind of pride in me. And literally the next day, he brought me a pair of sneakers. When I was first locked up, the first 3 to 6 weeks in, I was just observing. That was my first time in prison. So I'm observing, and I'm kind of going with the flow with the rest of the gangbangers that's there, you know what I mean? The gang members that were there with me. And somebody had got raped on the tier. Now, after he got raped, he almost lost his mind. I seen him lose his mind, completely. Had to be put in the infirmary, and then he was in the psych ward, and, he just lost it. Now, a few more incidents happened, and I could have prevented it, but I didn't. That shit took a part of my soul because I could have done right by another human being, but I didn't. So I didn't like the way that felt. I didn't want to be in that position anymore. So I took on a new position because I didn't like that. You know what I mean? So what ended up happening was the kid that got raped ended up snitching on the guy that did it. So the kid snitched on him. Now, the cell that I was in, you can see the yard for people that's in aggregated segregation, right? Yep, Axe Egg. So I'm looking at the yard and I see him coming out. And he's reading the Bible, the Torah, he's reading all this type of shit, right? So I spoke to him one day, right? So my homeboy, another blood, he was like, yo, Jay, why in the fuck you talking to this nigga? Like, why you talking to him? Jay, don't talk to him. I'm like, nah, hold up. I want to like really like see what the fuck this is. You know what I mean? So I'm talking to him, and after like 4 or 5 days, I don't know how I tapped into him, but he ended up crying. And he started divulging all of this information. How he was in there for raping a 12-year-old girl, his girlfriend's daughter, that he's done it all his life. That his first time in prison, he went up under these lifers, and it was a different time back then, you know what I mean? Because he's older than us, you know what I mean? So he was going to jail since the 70s and shit. And he said that, you know, raping was part of like prison, you know what I mean? And he said like, he knows it's wrong, but you know, no one's ever like spoke to him in the manner that I was talking to him, like a human being. They just kind of like judged what he was about. So he continued to keep that image up, you know what I mean? Because he felt if he was vulnerable, like he was doing to me right now, he could be victimized. He can't trust anybody, you know? So for like maybe like 2 or 3 days, he asked me like, is this for real? Like, are you talking to me like for real? And like, you know, like, I said, yeah. He wanted to set up speaking to the COs to get roomed with me. That wasn't gonna happen, you know? But for the most part, I continued to talk to him and stuff like that. And he promised, you know what I mean, that he would try his best, like to refrain from doing that type of shit, you know what I mean? Because he knew it wasn't right, you know? And a lot of it was I was able to put him in somebody else's shoes, you know? So I asked him, I said, you got kids, right? I said, what man wants to be taken advantage of in that type of way? How do you look at your kids? What do you tell them? Like what part of you is taken away and snatched from you? Your spirit. And how are your loved ones not supposed to see it? That a piece of you are gone. How do you bounce back from it? You don't know the answer, but you're part of it. You're part of snatching that part of somebody's soul, traumatizing somebody, but you don't know how to give it back to them. You're wrong. You know? Just like I was wrong for doing some of the things I did. I can't put somebody's life back into them. You know, I can't help somebody walk straight again. I can't do any of those things. So I can't partake in those things anymore. You get what I'm saying? And I was able to tap into his better conscience in that way. And my homeboy didn't like it, but he understood that me doing that possibly helped somebody not get raped. So that was the main goal. So even if I didn't like what he did, I hated what he did. I hated that he raped that 12-year-old girl. I hated that he was a rapist, period. But if I can talk to him and tap into his head and his heart, that he doesn't do it to another human being, what better, you know, calling and feeling is that to do? So the very first time that I put my creativity and genius to work in prison was I saw this dude. He was an inmate, and he's kind of big, you know, tall as hell. He's bulky. He was walking around the cell in a tear, like upset. Just watching his behavior, I can tell that he was going through certain things. So I took a wild guess and I wrote him a page-long letter showing how much I'm sorry for whatever he's going through, you know what I mean? And that I'm here for him to vent, listen to, or whatever he needs to do to get to whatever stage, you know what I'm saying? But don't give up. And I slid the letter under his door. Now, in prison, that's a big risk. You know, you can get your ass whooped or stabbed up for doing stuff like that. I seen he picked it up. At first he said, who slid this shit under my door? You know what I mean? So I'm like, I'm gonna have to whip his ass when we get out and the door's open. But I waited. He went to the window and I could see him still reading it. He kept looking up at me at my cell, and then he started crying, you know? And he told me, I'm gonna come see you when the door's open, as soon as it open. And he didn't say no more. The next day when the doors open, he ran up to my cell and hugged me and cried. And he was like he just asked me like, how did I know that he needed that? And I was like, I didn't. Like, I felt it. I do this thoughtful, positive kind acts to change up the image. You know, what stronger position can I hold but being a role model? You know, as a blood. You know what I mean? Like, that changes the whole narrative of it, you know? And I've seen it done before, just not to this level. So why not? I took kind of like the blueprint from Jesus. You know, Jesus walked around with hardened criminals, like the worst of the worst. Killers, tax collectors, like, you know what I mean? He hung out with us, like a whole bunch of gangbangers, like, you know, for lack of better words, right? And he rose to the forefront without doing any criminal activity. He put himself in the forefront. He took all the risk. And that's why he has the following that he has to this day. The first time I read The Art of Soul Making, what I saw was a mirror. You know what I mean? It was literally a way for me to read it and answer certain questions that had me dig into myself. I'm listening to another great mind say the same thing that I've always felt, but they're putting words to it, you know? And that's why I loved it, you know what I mean? Because I'm reading myself. You know, I'm reading things that I use and I did and I implemented in my own life in order to get to this path that I'm at now. You don't denounce all that you've been through, you know? You recognize it, you embrace it. By you embracing it, you can turn it to anything that you want it to be, you know? But if you denounce it, you can't utilize it anymore. You can't use it. I was really like, you know what I mean, the definition of like, you know what I mean, a good-hearted inmate. That anybody I came across or I bumped into, I tried my best to bring them a little bit of joy so they could feel better than they felt before they met me. I was able to spread a lot of peace, you know what I mean, everywhere I went. Once I got this mindset, that changes somebody's attitude for that moment that can ultimately protect somebody. It's a sense of harmony that is brought to life. And that's amazing.